By far, the most interesting quarterback in the 2024 college football season is the University of Utah's Cam Rising. Bar none, the most interesting. Today's show, I will delve into what makes him so fascinating to me. And on top of him being such a different type of dude with a different story and a different bio, on top of all that, he's a damn good quarterback. So this is QB Unfiltered, my take today, Utah quarterback Cam Rising.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Okay, Cam Rising really is a different guy. And just real briefly, I mean, we can start with the flowing locks that he's sporting. And then we go to the fact that, as you can see in this picture right here, that he's in pre-game warm-ups. And pre-game warm-ups is when you go out as a quarterback. You know, you may have your game pants on, you may not. You don't have, of course, any shoulder pads or your jersey on, whatever. You just go out on the field and throw the ball around a little bit, get a little loose, get the feel of what the wind's doing, all that kind of stuff before you go into the locker room, put your stuff on, and come out for pregame warm-ups. Anyway, Cam is on the field here sporting an Apple smartwatch, which in the annals of QB fashion rules, that is a faux pas. But he did it, he does it, and that's his deal. So we've got the hair, we got the watch, and then we've got the fact that going into this season, 2024, Cam Rising is 26 years old. 26 years old. And the most amazing stat on Rising is this season will be his 7th in college football. 7. Now, I'm going to try to break down his timeline. Hopefully, I'll get it right. 7 years. And to throw a little nugget on top of that, the NCAA just came out recently and granted him an 8th year. 8 years. And Cam thought about it briefly and said, nah, I think 8's enough. I'm going to move on with my life. So that sets the table for today's show. I'm going to give you his history briefly, as brief as I can, for a 7-year career. And then we're going to jump into why he's a damn good quarterback. Okay, Cam Rising, 6'2", 220-pound, 7th-year senior out of Newberry Park, California, which is in Ventura County, down there on the coastline between L.A. and Santa Barbara. He's a California guy. There's no doubt about it. Now, before we jump into Cam Rising, I've got a question for anybody to help me out in the comments down below. What is a Ute? Okay, it's the Utah Utes. What's a Ute? No Joe Pesci references or smart-ass remarks. But if you know, let me know. What is a Utah Ute? Okay, let's move on to Cam. So he played his high school ball for Newberry Park High School in Southern California. And in 2018, he signed with the Texas Longhorns. Now, he follows the track and the path and the way it is now, where most of the quarterbacks going into the 2024 season are playing for schools that they did not originally sign with coming out of high school, and Rising's no different. So he signed with the Longhorns, went out to Austin, and he redshirted. This is his first redshirt year, okay? Now, I don't know what went down in Texas, but after that first year, he jumped in the portal and went to Salt Lake City, Utah to play for the Utah Utes. And at that point in time, he went through what is called a redshirt transfer year. So he's been in college now for 2 years and hasn't played, and he's used 2 red shirts. You following me so far on this? Okay, so that's 2019, which jumps us in now to 2020, that goofy asterisk season, COVID-19, and Rising was beat out for the starting job that year. Okay, if they would have played the regularly scheduled games for the 2020 season, going into game 1, he was a backup. But that's COVID-19. Their first game of the year that year was in week 8. So the first 7 games were wiped out. And by the time you got to week 8, which was game number 1 against USC, he was starting. And in that game, he hurt his shoulder and missed the rest of the year. Okay, that's 2020. Then we go to 2021. And again, he's beat out by another quarterback to start the season. And after 2 games, he's put into the lineup and never looked back. Okay, he led the Utes to the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. That's 2021. And then we go to 2022. He's the man from Jump Street from the get-go. He's the guy, plays the whole year. They got a really good season. They end up playing in the Rose Bowl again against Penn State. And this is the game where Cam Rising blows his knee out so bad that he missed the entire 2023 season, which was this last year. Now, as I'm going to talk about when I discuss his game and the things that I like about him, they use him a lot on zone read, where he's pulling the ball and running. He's a pretty good weapon running the football, but the knee injury in the Rose Bowl came on a non-contact. It was a non-contact injury. In other words, he didn't get hit. It was just one of those freak things that happens in football where you plant to make a cut and your foot hits wrong, your weight distribution's wrong, you're leaning slightly one way or the other outside of your frame, and the torque of hitting the ground at that wrong ankle, and boom, that knee blew up. Now, I'm not a sports med guy, but I've been around the game long enough to know that when you tear your knee up, you're usually ACL or sometimes MCL. You got meniscus in there and you got cartilage. He screwed his up so bad that he tore a ligament that I've never heard of before. So it's the MPFL. The MPFL. So he tore his ACL, his MCL, meniscus, and the MPFL. His knee shattered, blew up. Devastating injury. And one of the storylines now for this upcoming season with Cam Rising is how much is that injury going to affect his style of play? In my opinion, I don't think you're going to see him running the zone read this year. I could be wrong. With technology and sports med and rehabs and, what they do with knees now. I was amazed with Aaron Rodgers and the stuff they did with his Achilles tendon when he snapped that. And so you don't know. But my guess is they're going to keep him back in the gun this year and just let him operate the offense and do his thing, throwing the ball. And he's not going to be running it too much. It's also going to be interesting to see what he's going to have on his knee when he shows up. And again, we're talking 2024. Back in the olden days when I played with leather helmets and no face masks, if you blew your knee out like that to where you missed an entire season, when you did come back, if you came back, you were wearing a knee brace that weighed about 10 to 12 pounds, and was nothing but Velcro and big slabs of metal. Okay, that was about this wide, and they had to cut your game pants up the back so that the pants would fit over that brace, and guys were noticeably slower and restricted in what they could do versus what they did pre-injury. So that's one of the big storylines this year for Cam Rising. But anyway, 2023 was wiped out. He spent the entire year with rehab and, getting his knee back in order so that he could have another chance to play his 7th year of college football coming up. Okay, so that's a brief history on Rising. Let's get into his game. And this is what I like about Cam Rising. Number one, he's a baller. Now, in another show, I talked about Noah Fafita, the quarterback for Arizona, being a scrapper. Rising's a baller. And a baller versus a scrapper, in my opinion, a baller, because they're really both the same kind of guy, but a baller has better skill. Now, Fafita, I really like his game. He gets it done. Cam Rising's more polished. So when I say baller and higher skill level, I'm talking about his mechanics are a lot better than Fafita's. As I said, they both win games. They both move the offense. They both score touchdowns. They both get it done. And they both compete their ass off. But Rising, with that baller tag, I mean, he's a warrior. He's a guy that looks like he is having a kick-ass time playing the game of football. He reminds me, and I'm going to show you this picture right here. I think that Cam Rising has patterned his game after Gardner Minshew. From the hair to the stash to the headband to the playing style, kind of a swashbuckling, get after it, make plays, and play with joy. I mean, he really looks like he's having fun out there. And he's the kind of guy with his playing style and his leadership skills where his teammates would run through a brick wall for him. And that's pretty evident. He's a get it done kind of guy. Okay. Secondly, he throws with great rhythm and tempo. And this is a subject that is big with me with quarterbacks. He's a guy that when you watch him on film, his feet don't get him in trouble. Okay. He's not throwing balls late consistently. What Utah does in their offensive scheme with his drop is they do a lot of 3 and hitch. And he does it so that it's rhythm and tempo. 1, 2, 3, hitch, throw. 1, 2, 3, hitch, throw. And he consistently does this. And I think that really adds to his game. There are times where he'll flat foot it. Okay. And flat footing it means he gets to the end of his drop, and instead of striding and throwing, he just plants both feet, has that ball and great ball carriage ready to throw, but he pauses, waits. Now, a lot of the times that's a result of, their receivers that maybe didn't run as clean a route as they should, or a defensive guy is starting to slide in front of the receiver and Rising's got to wait until he starts to clear before he can get the ball out. So you see him flat foot at times. That leads me to this little side note here. Utah's pass protection is nice. It's nice. They do a great job with not only their scheme, but they give him a clean pocket most of the time. You rarely see Cam Rising throwing the ball with dudes in his face. You rarely see him having to go off platform. Now, it does happen, yes, but not as often as it does with some of these other guys. I mean, when we talk about Shedeur Sanders and talk about Caleb Williams last year, it was like 75% of the time they snapped the ball. Those guys were having to run, get out of there, not be able to throw on platform. Rising's able to do that. Utah's offensive line does a great job. And with that, and what a lot of people don't talk about with pass protection, their running backs pass block. Okay. This drives me nuts watching the NFL. In the NFL, you see this all the time. They bring an inside linebacker that the running back's responsible for. The running back drops his head, dives into the ground to make it look like he's attempting to block the guy, but he wants nothing to do with it. Okay? Or he, instead of squaring up on a guy to pass block him, he picks a side so that the guy deflects and runs right by him. Well, in both cases, the quarterback's getting lit up in the chest after he throws the ball, and the announcers say nothing about it. Nothing about it. Running backs, it doesn't matter what level you're playing at. They have to be able to run the ball, catch the ball, and pass block. And pass blocking is huge. Utah's running backs do a really good job with that. Okay, Rising's got really solid mechanics. He's got the great feet, and he's got great ball carriage. There's no wasted motion with him. So he's really, really close to what I want to see in a quarterback, where everything is working in unison and rhythm, and the ball is coming out on time. He does a great job with his mechanics. Okay, now here's a mechanical thing and a technique thing that I have never talked about in my shows. We're going to discuss now. This is something that I taught my quarterbacks. I taught my clients in my private QB training, and that is getting on top of your throws. Okay, I equate and did a lot of analogies with baseball pitchers and quarterbacks. It's the same principles. Okay, hips and shoulders facing your target, transferring that weight to the front foot, taking the weight off that back foot, and getting on top of your throw. I always talk to my QBs about throwing off the mound, getting on top of your throw and throwing downhill. Well, what am I talking about here? When you watch Rising throw, and he doesn't do this 100% of the time, but he does it a lot. When he throws the ball and he strides, as that ball is at the top of his release, he is picking that back foot up off the ground, not dragging that toe, not keeping that back foot back there, like some guys will do. He's picking that sucker up in the air like a baseball pitcher, so that all that weight's on the front foot, and he's getting on top of that throw, and he is pushing that ball's his energy of his body, the torque, his hips, the stride, everything, that energy is being pushed out into the throw. You watch some quarterbacks where when they throw the ball, they keep their weight back, and that back foot only moves just a little bit. Aaron Rodgers does this a ton. Aaron Rodgers can do it because Aaron Rodgers is a freak. He's like Mahomes. You don't tell any quarterback to emulate Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes' style in the way that they throw. They're unique. Aaron Rodgers can keep his weight back and just flick the ball and throw it 40 yards on a rope. Rising really gets on top of that throw, and he gets a lot of juice behind those throws because of doing that. I like that. Okay. He plays with an attitude, and it's very obvious when he's running the football. All right. When he's running the ball, he's got it locked away with one hand, one arm, high and tight. He uses the offhand to swat defenders away. He takes his hand and puts it on helmets of DBs and pushes them away from him. He runs with an attitude, and he doesn't slide. Okay, Rising does not slide. When they've got the ball inside the 5-yard line, down in the goal line area, and he runs it, and they'll run QB runs with him down there, he is getting in the end zone. It's not one of these things where he tippy-toes into the line of scrimmage or he tippy-toes into a tackle where he's standing straight up and he's allowing the defensive guy to kick his ass and flat back him. Rising lowers his pad level and he initiates the contact and says, hey, I'm scoring. There's nothing you guys can do about it. And then the last thing with Cam Rising is his leadership. If you want to determine the leadership skills of your starting quarterback, listen to what his teammates say about him and listen to what his coaches say about him. And these guys all say the same thing, that he's the man, he's the glue, he's the alpha. He has bought into the system. He believes in Ute football. There's a lot of reports that say, he's using his elder statesman persona to assist the younger players coming into the program. This is what it means to be a Utah Ute. This is the level at which we play. These are the expectation levels we have for you, young man, in order for us to play at the level that we need to play at. So he's being a mentor to these guys. He's a role model in not only what he says, but what he does through his actions. He's got it going on in this field. Okay, now let's talk about what I don't like about Cam Rising's game, and there's really only one thing. He has a penchant for forcing the ball downfield on seam verticals and benders. Now, Utah, in their 4 vertical game, and if you get one safety high, you've got your slot receivers going down the hash, okay, seam verticals. If you've got 2 safeties high, one of your slot guys is running a bender, which is a quick post. As soon as he beats that slot defender over the top, he's snapping it off. Now, you've also got your running back that is running a check down route of some form. Utah runs the running back on a check angle route, which means he's got pass protection check inside, outside, or just outside, depending on what the front is. And then he'll release outside the tackle and angle back into the box about 4 to 5 yards deep. And that's the check down. Well, Rising, as he drops, he's pretty much asking himself mentally and seeing with his eyes, do I have grass to throw that seam vertical? Do I have grass to throw that bender? If I don't, because the coverage has gotten depth underneath it, my running back should be standing all by himself. And if you watch these clips that I'm going to show you, he is completing the balls. And I'm telling you, he's making pinpoint, beautiful, perfect passes. And he's got a really small window to put it in. And he's doing it. These are highlight clips of Cam Rising. How many times in the course of an entire full game is he trying to force that ball downfield to those seam verticals and benders? And because the coverage has dropped way back and gotten all kinds of depth, those balls are being knocked down, batted down, or picked. Look at his running back. His running back is 15 to 20 yards from any defender. Okay, and I've said this before in other shows, your offense is so much more efficient if you just play catch as a quarterback with your receivers and take what the defense gives you. I always told my quarterbacks this, and I always told young offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches, if you ever get bored completing passes, go do something else. Because if your quarterback falls in love with what I call the ooh-ah throw, or he's going to try to stick it in downfield, 20 yards downfield so that the crowd goes ooh-ah on the beauty of that ball, instead of throwing a little 4 or 5 yard boring check down route to that check angle route where your back catches the ball 100% of the time and runs for 20 yards. You know, you need to think about doing something else because your offense is going to sputter. Now, Cam Rising's sticking the ball in there. He's throwing completions, but the odds of him doing that at a high rate and the efficiency of Utah's passing game on that route drops if he continued to try to force it in. Okay. That's the only thing that I have a problem with his game. Everything else I really like. So I started this show with a couple of reasons why he's such an interesting dude. We talked about the hair, which good one. We talked about the watch. Don't do that. We talked about 26 years old. And listen, I coached a guy at Wayne State College in Nebraska that was that age. One of the best quarterbacks that I've ever worked with. It is really a big advantage when you've got such a mature, experienced, wise guy playing QB for you. So that's good for Utah. Okay. And then I also said this, besides all of those things that make him fascinating and interesting, he's a damn good quarterback. He's really good. I'm really impressed with Cam Rising. Okay. If you like today's show, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think of Cam's game. Let me know what a Utah Ute is. And this is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I got no